Hello and welcome to the last unit of the Art Appreciation Masterclass. Today we are going to talk about creative writing activities that you can do with a work of art. And this is one of my absolute favorite things to do, and there are so many options here. So I'm just going to go over some of my favorite ways to use writing with art, and hopefully it inspires you to take a work of art and give it a shot in your classroom. One of the simplest ways to use writing with a work of art is through narrative. And you can do a narrative in a lot of different ways. One is they simply just write the story. So you put up an artwork and you have students write the story that they see. You can warm them up through a little bit of discussion if you want to, asking them what happens before or what happens next, or you can just simply throw it out there and say, tell the story. You can also break down the narrative different ways. You can use a storyboard, or you can have them write a screenplay or a script between the characters. And then they can take their narratives even further by either acting out the stories or creating a tableau or something like that. In the Art Appreciation Worksheet Bundle, which is available in the resource library, which I've also linked down below, there are many worksheets that work with narrative. 3 of them are one that's just called narrative, and you can see in that one we have spots for all the main parts of the story. So if you would rather have the students be more deliberate with their storytelling, making sure they get all the details to plot their story, then you can have them fill this out and talk about the character, the setting, the plot, the path, the conflict and resolution, that sort of thing. Or you can just have them say, the who, what, when, where, whys of the story and use the 5 W's and 1 H worksheet. Or you can have them storyboard the story. So they think about 6 scenes in a story, have them draw little elements of the scenes and then write a little bit. And then you could even have them create comic strips for the story as well. Just like with any art discussion, we want to make sure that their stories and their narratives speak to the evidence from the picture or from the artwork. So they're looking at the artwork, looking for the clues and the details, and they're using those to inform their story. Another way to use creative writing with a work of art is to have students write poetry about artworks. And there are many, many, many different poetry templates available online, and you will find many of them in the Art Appreciation Worksheet Bundle. So here are 2 examples, and these are good for your younger learners. We have a cinquain poem and a diamante poem, and those are basically fill in the blank. So they fill in nouns, adjectives, verbs, and phrases, and then they fill them into the blanks, and then that will speak to the overall feeling or message or story that is in the work of art. And I have found that these poems really do capture the essence of an artwork. Another type of poem that you will find in the printable worksheet bundle is a haiku poem. And haiku poems are excellent for capturing the spirit of an artwork. And I particularly love to do haiku poems at the beginning of art history units. So I will have students look at a work like this one of neoclassical art, have them write a haiku about it. And then before I teach about neoclassical art, we read the poems and then pick out things from the poem that speak to neoclassical art as a whole and the context as a whole. So if you were to write a poem about this artwork, it would include things like loyalty and honor and patriotism. And these are things that were very important to the time period and to neoclassical art. And so you can use those poems as a jumping off place for discussion of the art history movement as a whole. But there's also value in just doing the haiku for the sake of art interpretation and connecting with artwork. Another type of poem is called a shape poem. And in this case, they can look at the artwork and pick a shape from the artwork and then create a poem within that shape. So, for example, in this artwork, you could take the shape of the house and then write the poem into that shape. And then you can erase the lines along the outside and have the words become the shape. And students can write their poems about the artwork and about the shape within that artwork, or they can write their poem related to, what that shape brings up in their own life and the connections that they have in their own life. Another thing that creative writing brings to us with works of art is ways to analyze characters in works of art and really look closely at them to see what we can learn about them. What are their motivations? What is their life like? And really, spend time connecting with the subjects in a work of art. I love having students write tweets or social media posts from the perspective of characters in the painting. So they can think about, what that character is thinking in that moment. And if they were to post to social media, what would they say? What hashtags would they use? What would their username be? That sort of thing. This is super fun for the students. They love to do this. They love to connect with the art in this way. They have fun with it. And they're using critical thinking skills and creativity at the same time as just having a great time. Another type of character analysis poem that you can do is the I am character poem. So they simply look at the character in the artwork and they write from the perspective of that character. So I am, I see, I hear, I feel, I want, I dream, all of these things that sort of speak to the inner being of a person. And what can we tell about that character through the artist's choices? This is another option for a character analysis poem. This is an autobiographical poem, and on each line, they have to write several different things about the character. So things that they like, things that they hate, things that they need, things that they fear. So they really think about, that character and what they're going through. If you really want your students to pay close attention to artist choices and really make that connection between what an artist does versus what we get out of it, you can have them use this character analysis worksheet. So on the left side, they write the visual cue from the artwork that tells us about the character. And then in the second column, they write about what you can tell based on that trait. So for example, the fact that she's in this sort of fancy dress, what that could say about her, the fact that they're having this sort of leisure time, the expressions on their faces, all of that can go in that left column. And then on the right column, you write about, what that could mean. And all of those things could show, their wealth, their happiness level, things like that. Continuing on with character analysis, you can also have students write a letter from the perspective of the characters in the artwork. They can use clues about the character and then think about what they might say to somebody else. So this can be a letter to a character in the artwork from the student. It could be a letter from the character to someone else in the painting. It could be a letter from the artist to the character, or from the character to the artist, or from the artist to the viewer, or from the character to the viewer. So there's a lot of different ways you could do this. And there is a letter writing template in the worksheet bundle that you can use however you want. I like poetry writing exercises and creative writing exercises because I think it forces students to think about artwork in more descriptive terms and to really practice using descriptive language. In our art critiques and things like that, we want students to say more than, oh, it's good or I like it. We want them to be able to describe what they like about it and what's interesting about it and to use language in more sophisticated ways. So another activity that you can have the students do is to write similes or metaphors about the artwork. And the students can look at the emotions in the artwork and then compare them to something else. So in this one, it can be, happy as a clam or sweet as an Easter bunny or, things like that. And you can see on this worksheet and on the haiku worksheet that I have a little bit of a warm-up area because this process of coming up with the similes and metaphors is kind of challenging. And I have found that giving students a chance to warm up and think about more simple language before moving on to the metaphors has been more successful. In this video, we talked about poetry, we talked about writing social media posts, narratives, letters, screenplays, storyboards, but really the ideas are endless. You can also give students just creative prompts to write about. For example, if this artwork were a student in your class, what would their first day be like? Or write a conversation between the artwork and the artist. Down below, I've put a link to my 82 questions about art cards that you can use as discussion prompts, but also as writing prompts as well. So I hope this inspires you to go out and have your students do a little bit of writing. But I want to make one note that I know writing can be a little bit scary because we have to grade writing and that can require a lot of extra work on your part. But I want you to understand that the type of writing I'm talking about in this lesson is more of a completion grade, or you walk around and you check that they did it, that it's more for their learning, not as sort of an assessment. So it's okay if you don't go through and meticulously grade them all, that you can spot check them, you can make sure they're doing it, make sure they're thinking, but take that pressure off of yourself that this is not a rigorous assignment, that this is a fun art learning, art connection activity to be used as a bell ringer, an in-class activity, and something to help students connect with works of art. All right, we only have 2 more lessons in the Art Appreciation Masterclass. In the next 2 sessions, we're going to be talking about perspectives and looking at art through different lenses. So we're going to talk about some art theories as well as critical lenses and viewpoints. Thank you so much for making it this far into the Art Appreciation Masterclass, and I will see you next time. Bye.